Take it!
I am.
Take it!
Say hi.
Hello.
This system has damaged my family directly. My father died prematurely. My son is no longer with us because of the failure of this system to help him.
The corrections system in the United States is at a crossroads.
We face a stark reality today. Our national correctional system, I think it's fair to say, is in crisis.
I think we can all agree that our prisons are understaffed. In the federal system alone, we have about 40% of our prison correctional officer positions unfilled.
The corrections crisis stands for the idea that we have full prisons at maximum capacity, and we have fewer officers standing watch. There's tons of problems when these prisons are understaffed.
Today, I sit before you to address the existential staffing crisis in America's prisons and jails. It impacts every aspect of corrections by asking staff to do more with less, and often resulting in excessive work hours and multiple mandated shifts, leading to increased burnout, less job satisfaction, and an inability to perform everyday security and rehabilitative functions.
So what are some factors that lead to understaffing? Many of the staff are underpaid, fear dangerous situations, and rarely see incentives to stay in their jobs. These issues affect state prisons and the federal system alike.
The current pay structure within the Bureau is significantly lower than that of other federal law enforcement agencies, including the U.S. Marshals, Immigration and Customs, and Border Patrol. Without addressing these pay disparities, the Bureau will continue to struggle and attract and retain employees.
17% of officers reported they were seriously injured on the job, with 48% reporting that they feared being injured.
The system is designed for corrections officers to come in every day, not to mentor, not to help coach, not to help bring somebody to a place where they can leave and be successful. So it leads to people feeling undervalued. It leads people to feel like they're expendable when they're just filling a position day in and day out, to go home without any success story at all.
And then what happens when there's not enough staff to oversee our nation's prisons? Corrections officers end up working longer hours, are assigned to tasks without proper training, or are forced to implement drastic safety measures, like lockdowns. Let's take a look at mandatory overtime. Reduced time off pushes officers past their physical and mental limits. In Georgia, a correctional officer reported working 16-hour days for 11 days straight. For part of that time, he was the only officer assigned to a unit of 600 incarcerated people.
The BOP has also relied on staff augmentation, pulling case managers, teachers, psychologists away from their work to perform duties.
When staff are shifted to supervision roles, important programs like education, healthcare, and job training get reduced or cut. This can make it harder for incarcerated people to attain the skills and education needed for rehabilitation and to successfully re-enter society. And because of this, it can have a damaging effect on community safety.
Fully funding and staffing our criminal justice system and our prisons leads to less crime.
Whenever there's a staffing crisis, first thing that they're really concerned with is just making sure that the prison is safe and secure. Then everything else is secondary to that. People look at it and, well, they're locked up. There's not much that they can do anyway. But that person still is a human being. That person still is loved by somebody. And that person still has a right to live out his life just behind bars.
Hello, this is a prepaid call from an inmate at the Virginia Department of Corrections, Lawrenceville Correctional.
Hello?
Babe.
Hey, babe. How are you?
So Quad Air entered the system in 2008. It was actually the day that Obama was elected when he was arrested. Quad Air had a really tough childhood. When he was 8 years old, that was the first time someone pulled a gun on him over a Pokemon card. You really start to see how that affected him throughout life. He moved from state to state, barely got through elementary school. He'll never say that he shouldn't have gone to prison. Like, he's always quick to be like, I needed to go to prison. I have a son. He's 12 years old, and I think about if a gun got pulled on him at 8 years old and what kind of person he might grow up to be and what he might experience in his life.
Let's discuss over-incarceration and overcrowding next. One of the reasons our prisons are in crisis and understaffing is such a problem is that the U.S. prison population is extremely high. This is partly because people are often given very long sentences or are locked up for offenses that may not have required incarceration in the first place. The U.S. is home to 4% of the world's population, but around 16% of all incarcerated people in the world. In 2022, state prison systems and the Federal Bureau of Prisons in 40 states were operating at 75% or more of their capacity. 17 of those states were operating at more than 100%. So why does the U.S. incarcerate so many people?
I would say a lot of it has been the punitive natures of laws. A lot of things that people are being locked up for doesn't take a period of incarceration.
When prisons are understaffed, the maintenance of facilities is often neglected, leading to poor conditions.
The condition of our prisons says so much about the character of who we are as a country. The people that work there, the people incarcerated there, do their work environment, do the conditions of their incarceration reflect the highest standards of a nation of our greatness? The nation's correctional infrastructure is also in despair and more susceptible to extreme heat and cold, flooding, and other weather events.
2015-ish, there was a riot in a prison, and the riot was over food that was privatized. It was a privatized food vendor. There was maggots in the food was rotten.
In Missouri, despite multiple complaints and requests to see a dentist, an incarcerated individual pulled out his own teeth.
All of these things add up, and it creates a powder keg in these prisons where you have both the staff and the prisoners at each other's throats in this incredible, stressful environment.
These pressures, anxiety, and trauma impact correctional staff, incarcerated people, and their loved ones, leading to emotional strain, and at times, tragically, suicide.
My son's name is Demario Lamar, and he was what we want people that work in this system to be. He was compassionate, he was intelligent, he was kind to a fault, and our system failed him.
Devastatingly, it is estimated that 156 active duty correctional officers take their own lives each year. That's 3 individuals a week.
Altogether, more than 4,000 corrections officers and incarcerated people in federal and state prisons die per year, many from suicide or homicide.
Let's not forget that the families suffer just as much as anybody else when they're short staffing. Their loved one goes to work, they don't hear from them for many hours, they miss birthdays, holidays, and when you weigh all that out, a person starts to wonder, is it worth it? Am I worth it?
So what's currently being done to help corrections officers, incarcerated people, and their loved ones?
My name is Matthew Charles, and I was incarcerated for over 2 decades.
My name is Andy Potter, and I was a corrections officer for well over 2 decades.
The Safer Prisons, Safer Communities campaign came together organically and almost by necessity. You had groups that represent the interests of prisoners and their families who have been suffering, not being able to see their loved ones, not getting access to programming and even medical treatment.
Once I ended up getting out of prison, I started working for an organization called FAMM. It keeps the ties between families and communities with their loved ones that are incarcerated.
And then you had officers were suffering just as badly, and they're bringing that trauma home to their families, and they're suffering high rates of burnout and suicide.
I founded a nonprofit called One Voice United. It's an organization that helps corrections staff bring their voices into the most pressing campaigns and what affects them the most.
While these groups have been talking, this is the first time they've been able to get the attention of the United States Senate.
So this is an opportunity to talk about the dysfunction that exists within this system at a level that we just naturally don't have an audience for.
I want to make sure that they understand how serious this issue is for me and my family.
And there's no way these problems get fixed unless these lawmakers and policymakers roll up their sleeves, listen to the problem, listen to these solutions, and get to work.
This is about putting humanity back into this equation. This is about someone coming to work and feeling dignity so that they can in turn show humanity and dignity to those who are incarcerated. Without those things, this crisis will just grow.
I have to believe that we can change it. I refuse to accept that we can't change it.
Say hi.
We have to.